Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode on Crypto Watch. Yep, you're here live again, once again with the Trade Engineer, or TTE for short. Yep. So yeah, if you're here, with me, do tap on the like button so that I know that you are live here with me. Right. So yeah, just give the video a thumbs up, right? So that I know that you are here live with me, so I can start the session. Yep. So for today's session, right, we'll be talking a bit more about how to be consistently profitable when you are more than half the time wrong. Right. So that in on first thought, right, it sounds a bit unfeasible, or it's not possible, right? So the question here, right, is it even possible, and how do you actually achieve this, right? So without further ado, I would delve into the details. But yeah, for those of you coming in right now, right, do click on the like button, right, so that I can know that you are live here with me. Right. So, yep. So just before I go into the details, right, for those of you who haven't seen me before, here's just a quick introduction, right? But for those of you who have seen my past videos, just bear with me as I do a quick self-introduction of myself. Right, so I am the trade engineer, right, the TTE for short. So I have about 6 to 7 years of trading experience. Yep, and I've traded numerous instruments, right, including stocks, futures, forex, and cryptocurrency. Right, so I help aspiring traders, unlock their best trade and unleash the trading potential within them. And all this can be done using just some simple yet effective techniques. Yep. So before I go into the session proper, as always, let me just first give some disclaimers, right? So for those of you who have seen my videos, I usually give this, so just do bear with me as I go through some of these disclaimers, right? So first of all, for accuracy of information is ensured as far as possible. There will not be any responsibility taken for any loss or inconvenience created by any omission or error. Secondly, ideas, suggestions, examples, and other information presented here are for reference and educational purposes only. The presentation contents here are also not intended in any way to give trading advice or recommendations to buy or sell any trading instruments. And me, the trade engineer, shall not have any liability for any loss or expense whatsoever, and all copyrights reserved. So with that out of the way, let me delve into the topic proper. So as you all know, right, we are talking about how to be profitable even when you're more than half the time wrong. So I just like to share, this quote, this famous quote from George Soros, right, which is very relatable to today's topic, right. So what he said, right, is that it is not about how often you're right or wrong, but it is all about how much money you make when you're right and how much you lose when you are wrong. So this is very very relatable to this topic today, right? Because it's not about your win rate. It's not about your whether you are 50% right or 60% right, right? The point the matter here is that you want to be profitable. You want to make money, right? So this is the essence of this code, right? So how do we achieve that? So let me give you a brief example, right? Using just this arbitrary example of ABC coin, right? So if you're going to trading, right? Let's say you're trading this ABC coin, you do need to have a trade plan, right? So basically, right? If let's say you're purchasing this coin, right, at $1 per coin, and you decide to purchase 5,000 of these coins, right? That gives a total amount purchase of about $5,000. Right, but of course, as with all trades, right, you do need to have a cut loss in place. So assume you put a cut loss price at about 95 cents for this coin, right? So you trigger the cut loss, right? What you get back is this amount, 4,750 US dollars. So that means, right, you actually lose $250. And if you set a take profit price, right, there's a trading plan, you have a cut loss and a take profit price. So you set a take profit price, right, of $1.10, right? That means, right, you actually stand to earn $5,500 if this take profit price is triggered, right? And that gives you a net amount earned of about $500, right? So let's look into the math behind it, right? So if we calculate, right, as what you mentioned, the potential net amount loss, right, is $250. But the potential net amount gain is $500, right? So if we take the ratio, right, 500 divided by 250, you get a ratio of 2:1, right? So this is actually known as the benefit to risk ratio. You stand to benefit, 2 times of what you're actually risking. So how is that important to our discussion here, right? So over here, right, I will illustrate in further detail, right? So the details of what I discussed earlier is shown here just for for reference. So let's say we make one trade, right? We make a first trade, and unfortunately, this first trade right triggered the cut loss at 95 cents, right? So we lost $250 on our first trade. And unfortunately, the second trade we still lose, right? And it still triggered the same cut loss at 95 cents. And this continues, right, for the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth trade. So we lost, consecutively $250 for 6 trades in total. But after that, right, on the seventh trade, right, we started earning. We started to hit that take profit price of $1.10, right? So we earned $500, right? And let's say this continues, right, on the 8th trade, 9th trade, and 10th trade, right? So in total, right, if we look at these 10 trades in total, what is our net profit gain or net loss gain, right? So if you do the math, right, you add all of this up, right, all these negative 250 times 6 and $500 times 4, what we do get is a net amount of a positive $500. But wait, you see the math behind this, right? We actually lost 60% of the time, right? For 6 trades in total. And we only won for 40% of the time. Right. So here you see something very interesting, right? We actually won less than 50% of the time, yet we actually had a net profit of $500. Right. So this is actually, the whole essence behind how to be profitable when you're more than half the time wrong. You need to have a benefit to risk ratio that is more than 1, right? So that ensures that you can actually lose more than 50% of the time and yet still remain profitable in the market. Right. So that is how you actually become consistently profitable. So do tap on the like button, right? If you like my sharing so far in this video. Yep. And without further ado, right? Let me go through a summary of what we understood from this, right? So first of all, right, we understood that the importance, right, of benefit to risk ratio, right? It has to be more than 1, such that you manage you actually minimize your risk and maximize your benefit. And you can see that actually winning percentages are not very critical here, right? You can win 40% of the time, and yet you still win on the overall. But of course, let's go into the details, right? This is just an illustrative example, but how do we go about achieving this on a consistent basis as a trader? How do we keep this risk minimal to be consistently profitable, right? So yeah, let me go into further detail onto this. So I have this uniquely created position sizing calculator. So it's a whole lot of words, a whole lot of numbers here. Bear with me. I shall go through bit by bit. But basically, right, this shows an overview of my position sizing calculator, which I personally use to enter my own trades as well. So I try to make it as comprehensive as possible. So this calculator actually, can be used for anything, for stocks, for futures, for forex, for cryptocurrency. So anything you want to trade, you can use this position sizing calculator as a gauge, for you to on what's the lot size, what's the unit number you have to place for a trade to actually, minimize your risk. Right. So over here, right, a brief overview, I have different currencies because I usually look at all these different currencies. So it's customizable, right? So you can actually make your own currency if you want to. Yeah, you just need to copy the template and set your own exchange rate. So I have the Singapore dollar, the US dollar. This is your Malaysian currency as well as your Hong Kong dollar. Right, so I just zoom in right to the one that we use most usually use, right, which is US dollar, because even you buy cryptocurrency, so in US dollars, right? So this is most commonly used, right? So I'll just zoom in onto this currency. Right, so first of all, I just go through some of the legends, right? So you can actually put in your currency, right? So in my case, it's because I'm a Singaporean, so I actually put in the Singapore dollars, right? So it makes things easier for me, right? And you can put in the leverage ratio, right? So if you're doing like CFD trading, or you're doing forex trading, for instance, yeah, all this leverage ratio will be important, right? So you can actually have a quick sense of what's the amount you're going to lose, and other critical aspects of your trade. You can also put in, your lot, the size, right? One lot equals to how many units? So for this is forex. Forex is usually one lot is about 100,000 units, right? So if if it's like stocks, right? For Singapore shares, like one lot is 100 units. Yeah. So yeah, take note. And you can also put in the key inputs, right, in the yellow box, right? So I actually highlighted all the key inputs in the yellow box. Right, so let me go through, some details of this position sizing calculator that I've created. Right, so you can actually, first put in, either the option here. So, your drop down list, you can actually put in whether you want to long or short this instrument, this particular instrument, right? And then you can put in your trading plan, right? So as every trading plan, you have your entry price, your cut loss price, as well as the target price. You can put in the yellow box here. Right, and then you always put in your maximum cut loss, how much money you're willing to lose, right? So in this case, right, let's say you're willing to use $100, right? So you put in $100 Singapore dollars here. So automatically calculate, in the appropriate currency. Yep. So the currency here is I put as 1.35. It might fluctuate times to do update this, right? So this helps to calculate, what's the maximum cut loss, right? And as well as the number of lots, the number of units, right? With this maximum cut loss amount. Yep. So so this number of lots or number of units will translate to the actual cut loss, right? In terms of whether it's leveraged or unleveraged, right? So with all this in place, all this will be calculated as well. What's the actual profit amount when you are leveraging or unleveraging, as well as your benefit to risk ratio, right? So you always want it to be more than one to minimize your risk. So in a quick, just key in your trade plan, and you can quickly see whether this trade is worth it. Whether are you risking more than you potentially stand to gain, right? And it also helps to calculate some of the cut loss and take profit percentages, whether it's on a leverage basis or unleveraged basis, right? So this basically works out your whole whether this trade is worth it quickly and easily for you. Because sometimes when you want to make a trade, there's this golden opportunity, right? And when you crunch out the numbers, you realize, oh, that moment is gone, right? So this actually helps make it help you work out your trade quickly and efficiently, so that you can decide whether to enter the trade or not. Yep. So in summary, right, what are the inputs you have to key in this position sizing calculator, right? So you have to key in basically things like your currency, right? What's the Singapore dollar, US dollar, or what other currency you have, right? The exchange rate at the bottom over here, leverage ratio if you're doing CFD trading, right, or other kind of trading, forex trading that requires leverage. Lot size, right? Accordingly, right? One lot equals to how many units? And put in the long or short position, like the trading plan, entry, target, and cut loss price. as well as the maximum amount you're willing to lose, and everything here will be calculated for you. And what the key outputs you would like to see, right? I think first of all, you like to see what's the number of units, right? Your position size, right? What is the number of units or number of lots you are going to trade, right? With this amount of cut loss, right? And whether this benefit to risk ratio is something that is acceptable to you, as well as the cut loss and take profit percentages, right? Whether this makes the trade worthwhile as well. So let's quickly go through, right? What are the benefits of this position sizing calculator that I have created? Right, first of all, right, it is, as what I've mentioned, an easy and convenient tool, right, for quick trading entries with minimal risk, right? Because you actually set what's the maximum cut loss amount you are willing to lose. Right, and secondly, right, it helps to revamp your trading so that you can become consistently profitable, even if your win rate is less than 50%. And this, the secret lies in that benefit to risk ratio, right? It has to be more than 1. Right. So, that is the part of my stock position calculator, right? So that just to share on that stock position calculator, or not stock, or rather an instrument position calculator. So it's actually more comprehensive, right? It actually can be, can be stocks, can be forex, can be cryptocurrency, or whatever you name it, right? So do tap on the like button, right? If you like this sharing so far, right? Yeah, and do leave a comment down below, right, on what you think on my sharing so far. Yeah, and click on that share button, if this is beneficial, so that more people can benefit from this sharing. Right. So now, without further ado, let me go to the next, agenda, which is basically, to review the coin that I basically went through last week, right? And if you haven't seen the last week's video, right, do catch it, right? Do catch it. Is the last video last week, right? And the question here, right, is because we're going to do a review, right? What has transpired for this coin, this particular coin, this Polygon or Matic coin, right? Ever since, what happened for the past few trading days, and what does the future hold for this coin? So let's quickly go through, right, a quick review of what has happened, right? So first of all, right, we had this long-term uptrend line that was drawn last week, right? And you can see, right, in the last few trading days ever since then, it actually broke below this long-term uptrend line. Right, next we have this 50 SMA as well as 20 SMA, right, that was drawn last week. And you can see, with the recent trading days, although it's still staying above the 20 SMA, but the gap is narrowing, right? So actually this is not a very good sign, but at least it's still staying above the 20 SMA. So this long-term uptrend is still valid. Right, and the third point, right, that I mentioned last week, right, is basically there was these two support levels, these two horizontal levels that are drawn last week, right? So the first was at about 1.45 to 1.48 US dollars, right? And the second was at 1.3. So it actually broke below these two support levels, right? Yep, in the trading days for last week. Right, and it's also still trading below this downtrend line. Right, so just to summarize, right, what has happened for the last week, right? So the moving average, right, the 50 SMA is still below the 20 SMA, but the gap is narrowing. Uptrend trend line, right? It actually broke below that long-term uptrend trend line drawn last week. The support levels, right? It actually broke below the first and second support level that was drawn last week as well. And the downtrend trend line, right, is still trading below that downtrend line. Right. So let's go through, what are the things to look forward for this coin in the near future, right? With all these developments in the past week. So first of all, we have to draw a new uptrend trend line, right? Since it broke below that uptrend trend line previously. So here is the new uptrend trend line, right? That is drawn, right? And you can see that it's actually now being supported by this uptrend line, right? It actually went below previously, but actually quickly bounced back up. So it actually was supported by this uptrend trend line. Right, and there is some indication of bottoming out, right? So we actually look at the price, right? The price has made a lower low, right? But we actually see that the RSI is also making a higher low, right? So this is actually a bullish divergence, and that could be an indication that this coin might be bottoming out, right? So we have to watch closely, for signs of whether there is an impending reversal. Right, and price rebounded, right? You can see recent prices have actually rebounded and now trading above that first and second support level, right? So there could be this fake possibility of a fake flush, right? Because as we all know, last week was a very eventful week, right? There's a Russia-Ukraine news, right? So there could be this fake flush due to all this unexpected news. Right. So, as always, right, I think this was mentioned last week, but, for that confirmation of whether this coin is going, to revert back to its uptrend or its upside, right, we actually need to see that strong breakout of this symmetrical triangle, right? And that means that it actually had to break out of this descending trend line. And also, of course, it has to be, supported by this new long-term uptrend line, right, that we drawn over here. Right, but of course, as always, there's news in the market, and there could be the possibility of this coin falling back again, right, as we saw last week, right? So if this long-term uptrend trend line actually breaks, right, we could be seeing at the next support level, right, either at this low point over here, or if not, it'll be at this next support level at about 1.18 to 1.19 US dollars. So that's something you have to watch out if you're thinking of trading this coin in the near future. Right, so just to summarize some of the key highlights moving forward, right? So the moving average, is still, the gap is narrowing. There's no change. The uptrend trend line, right? So that has changed, right? So it's now supported by a new long-term uptrend trend line, and we have to see whether this remains supported. And the support level, it did break below that first and second support levels, but price has now rebounded, right? So that could be a fake flush, and we do have to see whether whether this is indeed a fake flush, right? If not, right, we could be looking at a next support level, right, about 1.18 to 1.19 US dollars. And we saw that bullish divergence, right, where price made a lower low, but the RSI made a higher low, right? So that is something that's quite positive on the bullish side of things. Yep, and we have to see, right? We have to watch out. You see whether this, is valid, and whether that is a true indication that price would be reversing in the near future. Right, and that downtrend line, right? That remains the big question here, right? It still hasn't crossed this downtrend line. So will the price actually cross this line, right, for this coin to actually show more upside? Yeah. So we have to see that confirmation before this coin can show greater upside. Right. So if you like this sharing so far, right, do click on the like button, right, or on the love button, right, so that I know that you have enjoyed the sharing so far. And do leave a comment down below, right, on what you think of my sharing so far. Yep, and do share this with more people so that more people can benefit from this. All right, thanks for the love button. And yeah, moving on, right, to our last segment of today, right? I always end off with this review of Bitcoin, right? So as if you have tuned into my past few videos, I usually go through Bitcoin, and this is the last segment for this video. And once again, let's recap on Bitcoin, right? And if you are interested to know what my previous analysis, do check out my past videos, my past 2 videos so far. Right, so just a quick recap, right, on Bitcoin, right? So, this was mentioned last week, so I just quickly go through some of them, right? So, I had these lines drawn last time. So there was this resistance line, right? It was drawn about, this level, around 45,800 to 46,200, right? That was resistance level, and failed to break past that resistance level previously, right? And we had that uptrend trend line, right? It was a revised uptrend trend line, right? And it actually, because the previous week actually broke, so this is the new uptrend trend line that was shared last week, and it was supported by this line then. And you have this support level, right? So it was at this new support level of 39,500 to 39,600, right? And last but not least, right, because of, if you look at this point here, this seems like an area of confluence where the support and the uptrend line actually meet, right? So there is that possibility, right, where of an impending bounce or reversal, as I mentioned last week. So what transpired? What happened ever since this development last week, right? Now let's look at the next chart for more details. Right, so this is the revised chart for this week, right? So let's go through some of the details, right? So first of all, right, we have this downtrend line, and it is still trading below this downtrend line, right? So this is something you have to watch out for, right? It is still, a bit bearish on the longer term, right? So it has to cross this long-term downtrend line before it turns, to the upside, right? And we have to draw a new uptrend line because the previous uptrend line drawn earlier actually broke, right? And that area of confluence also didn't hold, right? So now it's supported by this uptrend trend line, this new revised uptrend trend line with a more gradual gradient, I would say, than before, right? So now this is the test of support. Whether this uptrend trend line actually holds will be something to watch out for the next week, right? And we had that support, right, at 39,500, 39,600, right? So it actually broke last week, right? And the interesting thing, right, is that this support is now the current resistance, right? It tried to test this resistance level a number of times previously, right? But prices closed below this resistance line so far. So this is another key level to watch out for. We have to see whether now this the resistance level, whether this can actually break past this immediate resistance level, which was the previous support. Right? If it actually breaks past, there could be a bullish indication and might mean some further upside to Bitcoin. Right, and let me introduce you to a new indicator here, MACD, right? So this MACD, right, is actually has turned negative, right? It's actually below this zero line, so it's negative. But you can see that the blue and the red line the gap is narrowing, right? So there could be a possibility of an impending crossover. What that means is that the MACD might turn positive, and that is typically a sign of reversal as well. Right, so we have to watch to see whether this gap might actually narrow and whether that crossover would indeed occur. Right, so these are the 4 things I identified for Bitcoin for this week. Right, so let's see how this pans out, and do leave your comments down below on what you think of my analysis so far for Bitcoin. Right, so as what I shared earlier, right, on that position sizing calculator, right? So if you are eager, to actually, grab that position sizing calculator, right, you can actually get it for free, right? You can actually get it for free, and it is actually just on my Facebook group, right? So you can join me on my Facebook group. Yep, it's a closed group, but you can join me, right? And yep, just answer some of the questions down there. Right, it's entirely free. Yep, and you can just key in, this handle down here, tte.the.trade.engineer, right? And you can find this The Trade Engineers private community. And over there, right, I've actually uploaded the spreadsheet, right? So you can actually use it for your own position sizing, right? For your own trading or your own investment, right? So I hope that this will be very useful to all of you. Yep. And do let me know if there's anything you're not sure about for this calculator, and I can make improvements to this calculator as we move along. Yep, but of course, you must first join me on my Facebook group to gain access to this calculator. Yep, and if you haven't been following me already, right, I have social media pages. So just a reminder here that I have my Facebook page, right, the tradeengineer.tte, as well as my Instagram and Twitter pages, right. So do follow me or like my pages if you haven't already. Yep, and last but not least, you like my sharing for today. Yep, don't forget to click that thumbs up button, right? To give me a like or give me a love, right? And do leave a comment down below, right? On what you think of my sharing, yeah, or what you want me to share next week, right? And of course, do share this video with people whom you think would benefit from my sharing, right? And with that, I've come to the end of today's session. I hope all you have benefited from this session today. Yep, and see you all guys next week at the same time, 9:30 p.m. Adios, everyone.